I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I've got myself on the right thing here. Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the Friday noon Zoom. That's a tongue twister if you try to say it 3 times fast. My name is Lisa Wagner. I'm in Buffalo, Wyoming. I am a small business consultant. I've been working with small businesses since 1997. So I've been doing it for a long time. So today we're going to talk about a 90-day financial scenario analysis. Just a couple things, I guess. If you have questions, we have a pretty small group, relatively small group. So if you have questions as we go, you can, let me suggest you keep yourself on mute if there's any background noise. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, or you're also welcome to type it in the chat box. And Pete and Harrison, if you happen to notice a question in there and I don't, if you could let me know. Sometimes I get going and I have a hard time multi-focusing. So, but really want to be sure we get all of your questions answered today as we go through this. So let's get rolling. I'm going to try to wrap up a little bit before noon and leave time for questions then too. And of course, I'll let Pete finish up and let you know if you need help with some of the stuff that we go through here, how you can get that. So anyways, let's get going. So what we're going to cover today is accessing and navigating the Initiate platform. We're going to talk a little bit about managing finances in the face of an emergency, particularly the emergency that we're all in now is COVID-19. And possibly, I suppose, post-election, if we ever get to post-election issues, there could be some potential emergencies that businesses have to face. We're going to do a quick profit and loss refresher because in order to complete the 90-day financial scenario analysis, you'll have to be familiar with the profit and loss and how to enter that information, okay? And so then we'll finish by going through that 90-day financial scenario analysis spreadsheet, and I'm going to give you a little bit of homework, and hopefully you'll be able to get it done. And then we'll meet again next Friday to talk about some more follow-up stuff, which I'll cover right at the end before we finish up. Okay. So before we start, can you launch that poll, Harrison? I want to get an idea of how many of you have had any experience with the Initiate platform.
I just launched it.
I launched it?
No, I did.
Oh, okay. I just know enough about technology to be dangerous. So if you could just pick which one of those 4 best fits describes your experience with the Initiate platform. And is everybody seeing that poll okay? Is anybody not seeing that poll? Just give another 10 seconds and then let's close it off.
Looks like we got 6 out of 8 voting.
Okay. Okay, so I think we can close that off, Harrison. So it looks like most of you either haven't been on it, you've heard of it, or you haven't been on it, one of the two. So not too many people familiar with it. So that's good to know. So I want to show you, actually I'm going to need to switch my sharing here. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. I want to show you how to access this platform. So Pete, for folks who want to access it, do they need a password to get in, or can they just go to the website that I have typed on here?
Yeah, they can just go to our website there, and right at the very top, you'll see a link just as you're seeing here. And if you go to our website, it's right at the very top of it, and it says register for initiate account here. You just fill in your account information, your name, address, and email, and you'll have access to this website here. And there's a number, over 100 different tools that you can utilize.
Okay, great. So I wanted to show you, so actually when you go to Native 360 website, and then right at the top, like Pete said, you'll see this initiate button, and you can click on it, and it's free to access the account. Is that right, Pete?
Yes, it's free access, and I strongly encourage everybody to set up an account. And all this, there's a lot of material on there, especially for COVID and opening the restaurant under COVID guidelines, and also different businesses as well.
So there's some great tools I'm going to show you. So when you log in, when you create an account and log in, these are free business tools, and we're going to be using one of them today. So you're actually going to have to go and log in and download this tool in order to be able to use it. And maybe after the website, maybe we can email out just the link so people know right where to go. So once you log on, this is where you end up, and the website looks like this. It's called Initiate, and you'll see Native 360's logo at the top. And if you scroll down, you can see I'm on the dashboard home. This is where you'll end up. If you're sitting on your computer right now, you can do it right now if you want, but it'll look like this, okay? And you can see that there are different topics at the top here. So I can click on COVID-19, for example, which is where we're going to find what we're looking for today. And here you can see resources on the right, the 90-day financial scenario analysis, guide to taking your business online, reopening, dealing with some COVID issues, leveraging technology. There's also some information on emergency preparedness. So let's see, one of these I wanted to. So if we click on, for example, financial management in the face of emergency. So this is really what are ways I might start thinking about dealing with the financial challenges that I'm having around COVID. And so you can see this gives you some resources. So it says, figure out your break-even point. If you click on the break-even, if you click on this right here, then you can go actually to a calculator that's going to show you how to calculate your break-even. It's going to actually do it for you. Once you fill out the profit and loss statement, which we're going to go through today, you can go in and enter this information here, and it's going to give you actually what your break-even cost is. It's going to give you some really great information. Okay, so it's a great tool. Adjust your finances. Do you need to get more credit? Do you need a loan? Talking to your customers, and then some other tools that you might be interested around financial management preparedness, right? So some great resources here. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about in today's webinar, we're going to talk about the 90-day financial scenario analysis. So if you go to the COVID-19, click at the top, and then right here you'll see 90-day financial scenario analysis. You click on it, and it's going to give you an option to download the template and download the sample. And you just click on those, they'll go right to your computer. You can save them, they're Excel spreadsheets. I already have them saved on my computer, so I'm not going to do it again. Okay, great. So now I'm going to switch back here to my PowerPoint. Okay. So let's go in. I want to start before we get into that template, which I just showed you where to download it. I want to just go through kind of a quick profit and loss refresher, right? So for me, I always joke with Pete about this because we're both baseball fans. The profit and loss statement and looking at your numbers Understanding your numbers and your ratios. It's really like when you think about baseball, it's like looking at your batting average, right? You compare your numbers to how you did previously. You look at your ratios and it tells you a story about your business. So I'm a numbers girl, but I think that the numbers can tell you so much about what's going on with your business. And part of what we're going to do in this exercise of looking at 90-day financials scenario is to do that very thing and look at, well, what if we change certain things? How could we change our profit and loss? How can we change the money that's coming into our pocket, right? As a bottom line. So let's jump in with the profit and loss statement. So first thing that's really important to keep in mind for the profit and loss statement is that it covers a period of time. So that period of time could be 1 year, it could be 1 month. Could you maybe in the chat box, could you type in do you do your bookkeeping in-house, or do you use a bookkeeper, or do you hire an accountant, or do you do it yourself? If you could just type that in the chat box so I can kind of get a sense of, and if you're just starting and you haven't started yet, what is your plan? Do you plan to do it yourself? Do you plan to use a bookkeeper? A bookkeeper is somebody who maybe knows how to do the bookkeeping but isn't an accountant, or do you use an accountant? So if you could type that in the chat box, which one you use for your business, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to talk about, in the exercise that we do today, we're going to talk about doing 3 months worth of expenses and income, looking at a 3-month P&L, and we're going to look at it by month. When you start to get into situations like with COVID or other emergencies that are happening, and particularly when you're starting up, you want to look at each month individually. I mean, it's great to look at year end and total years when you're looking at ratios and things like that once you've been operating. But when we're talking about kind of emergency preparedness and emergency management and how do we deal with these kind of changing times with our customers and expenses, we want to look at monthly how we're doing. So a lot of you are just getting started. Very common to do it yourself in-house and then outsource it as you can. Okay, great. Okay, so the profit and loss statement, we start with revenues or sales, right? It's pretty easy. That's how much money are we bringing in from the product or service that we're selling. And then the next item we'll see is what's called cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold is the amount that you pay to actually create or deliver the goods that you're producing, okay, during that period of time, okay? And so we're going to talk about cost of goods sold a little bit more. It's a really important concept, especially when you start thinking about break even and stuff like that. Okay, so operating expenses. So then operating expenses are basically any of your regular ongoing expenses that don't go into cost of goods sold. And then other income or expenses, those are like one-time things. So let's say that you sell a piece of equipment and you get some income from it. That's not something that you usually do as your line of business. So that's if you get income from that, that's extra income. It's not really something you would expect to get in future years or months, right? Same thing by expense. It's like a one-time expense that you don't normally have. The most common thing that I see sometimes is like maybe you got in a lawsuit and you settled it, or you had to pay your attorney. That's a one-time cost. You don't usually have that ongoing in your business, okay? So let's actually look at, can you all see that okay? I'm trying to make this actually a little bit bigger here. So this is an example P&L. There aren't any numbers in it, but is everybody seeing that okay on your screen? Okay, great. So like we said up here, we have your sales. Sometimes you'll subtract out if you gave a discount or you had a return come back. So you have your net sales. Then we add cost of goods sold, right? So these are actually the costs of our material that we're selling or direct labor to produce goods that we're selling. It also includes if we are shipping those goods out, okay? And then that gives us what we call our gross profit. We're going to talk a little bit, this becomes more important when we start looking at break even, and we're going to do that next week in a little bit more detail. But basically, these are the costs that go up as you sell another item, okay? And we'll go a little bit more into cost of goods sold in just a second. Then we have our operating expenses. So these are things that are like payroll and rent. That gives us our net operating income, right? So our revenue minus our expenses, and this is our net income for our regular operations. And then we add in any other income or expenses. These are those one-time things that I mentioned. And that brings us down to our net income. So this is a kind of a really basic profit and loss statement. So I want to talk about, oh, I made that too big now. So I want to just delve in a little bit more to the difference between cost of goods sold and operating expenses. So the reason it's really important, like I said, when we talk about break even next week, but when you fill out, when we get to the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to go through, when you start filling that out, you have to split these two items out. They're both costs to the business, right? But it's important to understand the difference between the two. And I think it can get, cost of goods sold can get kind of confusing sometimes. So cost of goods sold are really any costs that are directly tied to the production or the distribution of your product, okay? So as you sell one more widget, as you sell one more t-shirt or whatever it is that you're selling, you sell one more meal, if you're a caterer or a restaurant, what additional cost do you have to make that sell? So that would be like your direct materials, right? So let's say if you're a restaurant, that's going to be your food cost. What did it cost you to buy that food? Or the direct labor to produce it. Now, you'll see when we talk about cost of goods sold, we have direct labor here and we have salaries here, okay? So think about it like this. If you're paying a salary, if you're the owner, you're not going to include your wages in that cost of goods sold, generally speaking, okay? The direct labor is if you are paying someone directly to produce, like if you're a manufacturer and you're paying someone to produce that product, their labor goes in here, okay? And then shipping costs, because if you sell an item, you directly have a shipping cost associated with that if you're shipping, okay? For operating expenses, so these are expenses that you need to operate, but whether you sell one item of your product or 100, you're still gonna have these costs, right? So whereas these are costs that directly go up as you sell one more item, these, you're gonna have these costs. So you have to pay your insurance, you have to pay your rent or your mortgage for your business, you have to buy office supplies, you have to pay your utilities, right? If you have salaried people, you're paying them whether you sell another item or not. And then generally marketing and sales also fall under here. Okay, so those are the differences between these two. And then the last piece that we showed on the P&L was other income and expenses. And again, these are the one-time things that you have that come in. So are there any questions about cost of goods sold, and particularly for some of you, for your specific businesses that you're in? No? Okay.
So I'm sorry. Just to be clear, like when I have someone helping me with an event, my payment to them, that would be under cost of goods sold, right?
When you have, so what is your business again?
I have a catering business. So like I had 2 people helping me with the wedding and I paid each of them.
So, okay, so I'm going to tell you that some accountants will deal with this differently. Sometimes you will see them putting direct labor like that into the cost of goods sold, and sometimes they won't. So if you're using an accountant, you want to make sure to understand from them what they're including in here, okay? I would say that generally, I would put wages and salaries under operating expenses. But if you know that for each, let's say for each event that you hold, you are going to contract with somebody to do certain parts of that work, then I would put that under cost of goods sold. But if you have an employee that you're hiring who's doing that work for you, that will go under operating expenses.
So it just because she hasn't like labeled them like that. Like she's like, so when you have employees, I guess there's additional, like I have to do I have to pay taxes on them and just different stuff like that. And I do use different people, and a lot of times it's like different family members. So it's not like I've paid any one person $600 where I have to file or they have to file taxes or whatever. I guess I just don't think that it's being made very clear on my end from the accountant. I just want to make sure I'm doing stuff right. Like, cause I'm writing a check for them, you know, so that I can keep track of what I'm paying out people. But I just want to make sure, like, if is it supposed to go under cost of goods as a labor cost, or should it be under like the operating expenses as salary?
Yeah. So, I mean, generally, so the easiest way to think about it is generally cost of goods sold is going to be, so actually when we talk about service businesses, a lot of times a service business won't even have a cost of goods sold line, right? Because they're just providing a service. So generally cost of goods sold is going to be direct labor to produce a product. Now, sometimes if you can directly correlate, if you have an event and you contract with every event you have, you contract with somebody to do $100 worth of labor to help make that event happen, then I'm going to put that under cost of goods sold. But if it's an employee type person, then I'm going to put under operating expenses. And I would have that conversation with your accountant, because I'm not sure exactly how you're working out the payment for those people who are helping you. The one thing I would caution you, and for all of you to, because this becomes an issue, right? If we have someone as an employee or a contractor, just make sure you're following your state labor laws on that, because sometimes small business can get into big trouble here, and depends on the state you're into. Different states are more hardcore about following up on this than other states. So I think you had mentioned, you know, the $600. So right, if you pay someone less than $600, you don't have to give them a 1099, and that's all fine. Just make sure, talk to your accountant or to your attorney, or get connected with Pete or one of the other native CDFIs, you know, in your area, and see if you can get some help to determine whether you have to pay someone as an employee or a contractor. So it's a little bit of a squishy area, but it's actually really important that you do it right, because you don't want to get in trouble with the state in terms of paying taxes, right? So, I mean, what I would say is that, like, I would go back to that issue of, if you know that each event you have, you're paying somebody through a contract service, $100 or whatever, and you know that that's true for every event, I would put that into my cost of goods sold. Sometimes it's called cost of sales. But if I'm paying them as an employee, that's going to go into salaries and wages. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more too about variable versus fixed costs, which is kind of what we're talking a little bit about here. I mean, cost of goods sold are almost always variable costs. But sometimes you'll find variable costs like those in here, which might be the case that you were talking about. Was that Sarah who was talking? Okay, yeah, which might be the case of what you were talking about. So like I said, if you can differentiate and you know it's a direct amount tied to a direct event, a service that you provide, I'd put it in here. If you can't, I'd put it in here into your operating expenses, okay? In the end, it's going to show up as an expense. You're going to get the tax deduction, and that's all good. It just comes to when you start looking at your cost structure and how you might manage that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that stuff next week too, in more detail. So, okay. Any other questions around cost of goods sold and operating expenses, one-time expenses? Clear as mud to everybody? Okay, so I want to try, okay, I told you I'm dangerous with technology, but I want to do a little quiz for you all, okay? Don't worry, nobody's gonna get in trouble if they don't pass it, okay? But if you're sitting at a computer or if you have a phone, I want you to go to kahoot.it, okay? And I am going to okay, is everybody there? Does everybody feel like they're could get to kahoot.it? Okay. Ooh. All right, so in just a minute, you're going to see a pin. If you're at kahoot.it, it should say put your pin in. Does everybody see that? Here's the pin that you want to enter in. Okay, Amani got in. Good job. Ricky's in. Pete's in. Felicia. Bethany, awesome. Do you know if I said that right? Sarah's in. Is there anybody trying to get in who's having trouble? Is there anybody who's trying to get in who's not in yet? Stacy's in. Jeanette's in. Great. Okay. Is there anybody who's in who doesn't want to get in yet? Because I want to go ahead and start the game, but I need to, I don't want to start it before I know that everybody's in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the game then. So the question's going to come up and you're going to pick your answer, okay? You guys ready? There's only 3 questions, so it's a really fast quiz. And you have 20 seconds for each question. And you just click what you think is the correct answer. Okay.
I don't see the question. I only just see the square, triangle. I only just see.
Are you looking at it on your phone or computer and not on mine?
I just switched to looking at it on yours and I see more than what I see on mine. Mine only just shows the red, blue, orange, and green. Like it doesn't show income statement, balance. It doesn't show all of that stuff or the question.
Oh, it doesn't. Is anybody else having that problem? I thought I'd try this. It might not
Yes,
work.
I'm having the same problem.
You're having the same problem? So like on your computer or phone, it's not showing the question?
No, I just read it on yours and was gonna punch it on mine.
Okay, so so feel free to read it on mine. And maybe this was a bust. We won't do this again, but let's finish up the next two questions. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. Oh, okay. So also how fast you answer is how you end up on top or not. So here's the next one. Read my screen if you can't see it on yours. So which of the following does cost of goods sold not include?
Direct labor.
Okay, so, right, it does not include rent, direct materials, shipping, and labor.
The following does cost goods sold, not
Okay, let's do the last one.
direct labor, wasn't it? Or no, it was rent.
Yeah, so the right answer was rent. Direct materials, shipping, and direct labor are all parts of cost of goods sold. Jeanette is in the lead. Okay, here's our last question. Another expense might include
A. Yeah, yeah, we got one.
Hey, everybody got in that time. By the third time was the charm. You all got it. Almost all of you got it right. 6 out of 8. That's pretty darn good. I know it goes pretty fast. So, okay. So another expense might include a one-time legal expense. So expenses like direct materials, utilities, and salaries, those are ongoing operating expenses.
So they can hear.
So given the, oh, okay. So I'm saying Jeanette, nice. Okay, so good job, you guys. I'm sorry about the technical glitch there. I thought I'd try it. So maybe next time we won't try that. If we had trouble with everybody getting it. Okay, so I want to go back now to, I want to go back now. Actually, what I want to do now is I want to go into the spreadsheet, okay, and show you these exercises. So, am I giving you all a headache flipping between my screens? Maybe I can just make my whole screen, share my whole screen, and that will take care of that.
So we have some that like the game.
Pardon?
We have some that like the game, and so
Good.
I think
Okay, Omani,
going-
great. Awesome.
Yeah, I think we keep it.
I love
Yeah.
the games if they work. And it's a great way to kind of refresh, do a quick refresher of the stuff that we talked about. Okay, so I want to go into now, remember if we went into the 90-day financial scenario analysis here on the Initiate platform. Right here, I downloaded both the template and the sample. So I want to show you the template first. And the template is right here. I don't like this template because I can't see the bottom of it. So I'm going to show you the other one. We're going to start with the other one. Okay. So the template is the one that you're going to actually enter your information into. Okay. But you can look at the sample. If you download them both, you can look at the sample so you can see what you need to do. On the right-hand side of this spreadsheet, let's see, close that there. Oops. Okay, on the right-hand side here, you can see instructions about this, but this is actually a really spiffy tool. It's really pretty easy to use. So what you'll do, when we're in times, particularly when you're starting up or when you're in times where there's emergency or something going on, you know, that's really changed what's happening in your business, it's really good to look at the next 3 months. So instead of thinking about looking at a full year, 3 years or 5 years, because there's so much uncertainty, we really don't know what to expect. We want to just look at the next 3 months and say, what do we think is a likely scenario to happen? And what are some worst case scenarios, and how might we be able to handle those types of situations? And this little spreadsheet tool is a great tool to use. So the way this works on the spreadsheet, anything that's orange like this are things that you can input, and anything that's white calculates automatically. And actually you can't even change it. You can put your clicker on it and nothing happens, okay? So what you do in here, when you go into the template, is you're going to enter your months. So what I would recommend when you do this is that you, so if you're going to be starting your business, you want to start it the 3 months that you're going to be starting. But if you've been operating your business for at least a year, what you want to do is you want to go in and enter. So let's say we're going to start with November, December, and January, okay? And we're going to take our numbers from last year, the same time last year, and we're going to actually enter these. So we're going to get our profit and loss. If we don't have one, we can run it. If you're using QuickBooks, it's really easy to run it for each month so that you can put these numbers in by month. If you're working with an accountant, you can ask your accountant to print these out for you. You might even ask your accountant to put the numbers in for you if you'd like, but I think it's a really good exercise to go through it yourself and do it. So put the numbers in. I would recommend when you go through this exercise, use November, December, January, or December, January, February, since we're already, you know, partially into November. Or like I said, if you're going to be starting up, maybe you're thinking you're going to start your business in January, do January, February, March. Okay. So then you're going to look at your P&L from last year, and you're going to input this information from your profit and loss statement from last year. So you're going to put in your sales for each month. You're going to put in your cost of goods sold, the total net amount for each month. And you're going to go through here and you're going to enter each of these. If you don't have one, just leave it blank. If you have another expense, I don't know what else you might have. Maybe you have a software subscription, okay? And then you can put that in. You can just add it in. You can put your number in, right? And it's going to automatically tabulate stuff for you, okay? So the first step is to fill this in. If you haven't been operating for a year and you don't have historicals, what you want to do is do your best estimate of what you think those numbers are going to look like, okay? And you're going to see how this is going to actually help us look at some different scenarios. So what if the sales don't turn out like we expect, okay? So do your best estimate to either put in last year's numbers or to project. And I think Pete's going to finish up by telling you if you need some help doing this, there's resources to help you get this done, okay? Then if you were able to put in last year's numbers, so if you've been operating at least a year and you were able to put in last year's numbers, you're going to come over here to this section. And this section is about what do we think is changed from last year. So we know we're in the middle of COVID. This is an example of a restaurant, okay? And so this restaurant, it's in the middle of COVID. They're expecting reduced costs, right? We're not going to hit sales yet because we've put in last year's sales and we're going to change sales later. Right now, we're just going to think about costs. How do we think our costs over the next 3 months are going to be different than they were the same 3 months last year? So here, in this case, this restaurant owner thought, I think we've laid off a third of our staff because we don't need as many waitresses. We don't need as many cooks, right? because mostly we're doing takeout. So we expect those expenses, our salaries, to decrease by 1/3. So if that decreases, our payroll taxes are going to decrease by 33%. Advertising. So, you know, we're not going to spend as much on advertising. Maybe we got a different way to advertise. And so we expect those expenses to be 25% less. But you could say, let's say we don't want 25. Let's say we want 15% less, because we're still going to advertise because we still want people coming in, right? So anyways, you go through each of these, you know, has your rent changed from a year ago? And do you expect any changes? Sometimes you'll expect an increase. Maybe your rent has gone up. I don't know anybody who would do that. I mean, actually, I do know some people who would do that. But let's say your rent's gone up 10%, you're going to just put in a plus 10%, okay? So you go through each of these and make those adjustments. Like I said, if you're projecting out, if you haven't been operating and you didn't have operations of 3 months last year at the same time, all of these will be 0. You won't change these. You'll just put your best estimate in here for the 3 months that you're projecting, okay? Then we scroll down here, and the same thing, we enter the other income or expenses. So if you did have some extra income come in during these 3 months that were one-time income or expenses, we don't want to carry those forward, right? We don't want to count those when we're looking at what might happen over the next 3 months. So you enter those here. So this is a pretty simple, straightforward where you enter and how. Coming up with these numbers, of course, is the challenging part. And that is something that I know Pete and his staff and Felicia and I don't know who else is on the line from the native CDFIs who are doing some of the training and TA on this can help you with, okay? So then we're going to go to the next tab. So the next tab is the profit and loss scenario. So here you can, it's going to pull your changes that you put in from the previous tab. So if you, let's say, for example, you put these changes in here, these changes are going to be pulled through here for expenses, okay? So if we look here, we have expenses of $4,000 each month. If we go back here, they were 6,000. So they've automatically decreased them based on what we put in here, okay? So there's really the only inputs on this tab are up here. So we're looking at how do we want it? So this is where we're going to change our sales, okay? This is, we're going to say, okay, we put this in here. This is what happened last year, or this is what we expect to happen in terms of sales this year. But what if that doesn't happen? What if COVID doesn't recover? What if it gets worse and our business sales go down? Here we can change that, and we're going to see how that impacts our sales, okay? So we have 3 different scenarios. So this is what if we're at 75% of our sales? What if we're at 50%? What if we're 33%? And actually, in this first one, you could even look at what if you're higher, right? You could say, well, what if we were 125% of our sales? That'd be awesome. And you can see how these numbers automatically change, okay? Your total expenses will not change, but your cost of goods sold will, okay? So you can play around with this then and put in different numbers and see how that impacts. We scroll down here then, we're gonna see how that impacts our operating profit and our total net profit. So we can see when we start dropping our sales too low, we're in trouble. We can actually play around with this to find out, just by putting in different numbers, where do we actually break even, just by guessing on percentages. But it's kind of a fun tool to play around with and see how that can impact your business if sales do not meet what you expect, okay? But so this tab's a really simple one. The only thing you change is this right here, okay? And then the third tab is your business cash flow. On this tab, that a little bit bigger for you. The only, like that. The only thing that you're going to put in right here on this tab, I have to make this, is, oh, we can't see the end there. Let me see if I can get over there. Whew. Sometimes my computer gets funky. Okay, well, when you bring it up on yours, you're gonna be, oh, there we go, okay. Okay, so this is your cash at the beginning of the month, okay? So if, depending on what month you start, let's say if you started in November, you're gonna look in your business bank account and say, how much cash should I have for my business starting at the beginning of the month? And then if you know that you've had loans approved, put them in here, okay? But if you haven't had any loans approved yet, if you haven't applied for loans, you don't have any, put 0, okay? And the reason I recommend you do that, because then at the bottom, it's gonna show you if you have a shortfall and you're gonna know how much in funds you need if you need to borrow money, okay? Everything else down here is gonna calculate for you, except for loan payment and owner's draw. So if you have a loan on your business already, you want to put in your monthly payment right here, okay? And then you want to put in down here, how much money do you need to take out of this business to live, right? Because I know when I'm running my business, the first person I'm going to pay is my landlord. I'm going to buy food. I'm going to pay what I need to pay before I pay anybody, right? I'm going to cover those expenses that I need to cover. So you want to do your best estimate here of how much each month you're going to need. Okay.
Hey,
And that,
Lisa. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, you know, on that, the loan payment right there,
Mhm.
maybe point out to everyone, like on your loan payments, you'll always have a principal and then you'll have an interest amount. And the interest expense goes up above there, and then the principal, and you can get that from your lender by just asking them each month how much of my payment is going to principal and how much is going to interest.
Right. That's a great point, Pete. So if you look up here, you'll see there's interest expense, right? If your accountant does this, your accountant will pull this out for you. It matters actually for taxes. So you do want to make sure you get that right. If your accountant has done this right, you can take your total payment and subtract this amount out, and that'll be the balance here. But that's a really good point. So don't double ding yourself, right? Don't put your full principal and interest payment here and then have your interest payment here, because then you're counting your interest twice as an expense. So yeah, great point, Pete. Thank you. So pay attention to that. So you can see though, actually, this is a pretty simple, there's only a couple entries on this tab. And then the final tab we're going to cover today is the household tab. So this is actually your monthly household, and you want it to match up with whatever months you're projecting. Same thing as you want to start, like how much cash did you have in the bank at the beginning of the month? And this number actually is going to pull through from what we put down here. So whatever you put down here, it's actually going to pull it through right here, okay? And then you might add other household income. So maybe your spouse or partner works. Maybe you get alimony payments or child support payments or things like that. So you want to add those other payments that you get in here. Then you want to add in your monthly household payments, right? And any credit card or debt payments that you have. And then this is going to give you your total cash on hand at the end of the month. So one thing you can do, remember we have in here, like how much do we need to pull out? This really helps us understand that. So actually this person, they could pull out a little bit less from their business if they needed to, and they'd be okay, right? So you can, once you put this information in, you can look at this and go, well, actually, if I come back here, I could probably be okay if I only took out $2,000. And then if I come back here, I can look at this and go, yeah, I'm okay. I'm still good, right? So you can kind of go back and forth and when you make those entries. So those are the 4 tabs I want to cover today, because we'll cover the rest of them next week. So I'm going to come back here, and this is your homework now. I know everybody loves homework. You all thought you were getting out of school, but you weren't. If you're running a business, you're fully in school. On OJT, right? On the job training at all times. So basically what I want you to do is do input information for tabs 1, 3, and 4, okay? And I just have some, so I went through each of those. So in terms of picking the months, we talked about that. You could do November, December, January. You could do December, January, February. If you're starting your business, put the 3 months that you plan to start. Okay. In column R, you're going to enter those changes. Remember, if you're starting up and you didn't have a history a year ago, you leave that blank. Homework just got easier. And then on tab 3, you're going to enter your business cash flow. So you only have to enter that cash at the beginning of the month and any of the loan information, and then your owner draw, that's it. And then on the cash flow tab, you're going to enter your cash flow, your household cash flow information, okay? So that's your homework. Any questions about that? Clear as mud to everybody?
Mhm.
Okay.
Hey, Lisa, on the if you go to the Initiate website after you have your account set up,
Yeah.
and right at the top there you'll see contact a coach.
Right here. Can you all see that on my screen? So I'm at,
No, let me see.
oh, you can't see it?
No.
I don't know what I'm sharing. Oh, resume share, it stopped, sorry.
Okay.
Let me get back there because I was right there. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so right here, Pete's talking about when you log in, right up here, it says contact a coach. So you can click on that, right, Pete? And then
Yep. Mm-hmm.
click on that. Oh, look, there's Pete's picture, there's John's, there's Brent, and some other folks. So you can then request help. Is that right, Pete? That's how they do that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that we'll add on there is for Citizens Potawatomi clients and Muskogee Loan Fund clients, I'll reach out to both of their organizations and we'll add their coach contacts on there as well.
Okay. And
So
if you,
that if you're working in Oklahoma, you can contact someone you're familiar with.
great. And if you get on there before Pete has a chance to do that, just fill out this form, tell him where you're located, and Pete will get you to the right person, right, Pete?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint again now?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so next Friday, so if you can go through and do that, sometimes the numbers can be intimidating, you know, but once you go through it, I promise you, you'll find it such a useful exercise. And as you can see how your sales change, how that impacts your costs, it becomes so helpful in helping you manage your business, manage your financials. And so next week, we're going to, same time, same place. It's Friday the 13th. So I dare you to show up. Maybe we'll try Kahoot it again with a Halloween. No, it's not Halloween. It's Friday the 13th. It's November. We'll see. Anyways, we're going to, if you have time to get your spreadsheets done by then, if you have questions, we can go through those. If you don't, it's okay. Please still join us if you want. I promise I won't point anyone out or call on anybody. But we're going to talk about calculating your break-even cost, which is a super important number when you start looking at tough times or when you're starting. And we're going to talk about ways you can affect that break-even point, things you can do to manage and affect it. And we'll look at the rest of the tabs on that spreadsheet, including the sales planner. So,
Hey, Lisa,
yeah.
could I ask everyone just to turn their video camera on and just give us a thumbs up? We want to take a screenshot here of everybody. Oh, yeah, there we go, Sarah. Just give us a thumbs up.
Hey,
Okay.
Lisa, could you unshare your screen so that we can
Oh,
see
yeah,
everybody?
sure.
Okay.
There we go. Look at this. Keep at it, guys. We're going to take a couple here.
All right. And the other thing I encourage everybody to do is spread the word, reach out, because we're trying to create a community here. Reach out to your friends and spread the word.
Yeah, and if you have the chance to do this, bring your questions. I promise you, if you have questions, other people do.
You got some. Okay, guys, we're good. You can. Good job.
Thank you.
They need to be native though, right?
They can, yeah, native. If you've got friends that, think this would help, that's in small business, spread the word, but we'll
It showed them.
get our native community involved here as much as we can.
That's gonna be really good.
All right,
Great. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great weekend.
thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
For your time. Appreciate you guys inviting us.
Thank
You
you
bet.
guys. Appreciate it. Super awesome.
Thank you.
Learned a lot for the first day. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. See you next week.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.